it's not that they didn't love us, they just didn't accept our relationship. It is hard because we're quite normal and boring. We're just a family. We're not, those lesbians. And actually, you've got to be in that world letting them see you moan about the boiler breaking. And by living your normal life alongside people, they can see that actually it's just sex. It's a tiny bit of your life.
Welcome to Curious Chats and Kind Acts, the podcast that celebrates difference, kindness, and the little things we can all do to make our world a better place. Join me, your host, Sonia, co-founder of the Axe charity, for some open, authentic and fun conversations with lots of interesting, extraordinary, everyday people who are all a little bit different. Prepare to have your curiosity piqued and your heart warmed as we explore the ways we can all make a difference in the world, no matter how small. So get ready to be inspired, uplifted and motivated to be the kindest version of yourself. Let's make the world a kinder place, one conversation at a time.
Well, hello there. How on earth are you today? We have a treat in store for you today. Well, maybe or maybe not, because you have me. We've had lots of feedback about people wanting to know more about me. So here I am, my story. And it was a very weird experience. But we chat about my engineering days, uni, faith, falling in love with a woman, and risking my life savings on a derelict chapel. I have to say, it was really weird listening back to my stories and reflecting on this as my perspective of the events, and would other people's perspectives be the same, or has the story changed in time as I've told it over and over again? Well, anyway, here I am, to the best of my memory, and I hope you enjoy it. And if I've got it a bit wrong, well, I'm really sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
For once, Sonia is not the voice of the episode. We have turned the tables. So this voice now is Vic Elizabeth Turnbull. I am the founder and CEO of a fantastic social enterprise called Mike Media, and we're a podcast production and training agency. And I've been working with Sonia for the past 4 months.
About that.
Yeah, to help Axe and the team to launch this podcast that you're listening to now. So I feel like the pressure's on because I've got to show that I know my stuff.
You've taught us everything we know, and now you're demonstrating it.
I know. And also because over the past couple of months, I've been listening to a lot of your interviews that you've done, and some that our listener will have heard. I'm quite in awe of how much of a good interviewer you are. And so, no, you are. You're brilliant. And so now I feel like I've got to live up to your brilliance.
Well, thank you.
I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I don't. And for people that know me, I don't say that to everyone. So
it's been good fun as well. I think that's always important. We've had a bit of a laugh along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's set the scene where we are. We're in Ashton-under-Lyne. So you've come over to Tameside today.
Yeah, loving it.
We're in Tameside 1, the home of Tameside Council. We're in an office space. It's a bit echoey.
It is a bit echoey. Very modern compared to some of the other buildings I've seen. And the beautiful market is just opposite. I'm going to have a little mooch around there and get a bargain after.
So why am I sat here with you?
So you're sat here because I have been sat where you're sat now for a few interviews. And it was like, people have been dead. I can't believe how honest and open people have been with me, which is quite humbling for one. But for two, I'm like, well, if you're prepared to be like that, surely I've got to put myself out there and go through the process. I think it's only right. So yeah, for one episode only, well, who knows? I'm flipping the table, and all questions are open, and I'll answer them with as much honesty as I can from what I can remember.
So who are you?
So I'm Sonia. I can't remember how old I am and never can. I have to go back to being born on an even year, so I'm 45. And I don't know, I've had quite a busy life, but I love that. I think life's for living. I started off as an engineer and then decided I didn't want to do that, so I've done lots of different exploring of life and countries and people, and got to where I am today. I always ask this question, and it's so hard when it's on the other side. Like, how much do you give? I I'm married, got 4 kids, got an ace dog called Buddy, who's got anxiety issues. I love sport, a little bit addicted. Love life, love people, love humans. There we go.
And so it was that love life, love people, love humans that is one of the core values of the charity that you founded. What you've not mentioned in your introduction is the charity.
Yes, sorry. So, why did we start the charity? It was genuinely, I went to the dentist and I had a really bad experience. It wasn't that the dentist was horrible, I just had to have a tooth removed and it wouldn't come out. And there was a really crackly radio in the background that was winding them up. And I had to leave my car and get my dad to come and pick me up. It was that bad. I said to Joy, my wife, I was like, how can you thank your dentist? It's weird. And so in the end, we went round the houses. We got Rachel Topsy-Turvy round to do some art. We were like, we're going to do a postcard.
Who's Rachel Topsy-Turvy?
A mate that I play hockey with, but she's dead creative. So I was like, come on over. And we spent all night trying to come up with a postcard that said something like random act of kindness in a picture. And what we ended up doing is writing on the blackboard in the kitchen, random act of kindness, and getting 100 of them printed. I've got a digital radio with the postcard. We razzed up to the dentist in the Volkswagen Touran at the time and got Jonah, the youngest, to run out and dump it on the side going, random act of kindness, run out, and we sped off. But we got a real buzz from it. And they'll never know who it's from, but that's the point. And so we just started doing more. We'd got 100 postcards printed because it was value for money. So I'd drive through the Mersey Tunnel quite a lot and I'd put £1.50 or whatever it was and go, Happy Tuesday, and go and run and give it to the car behind me and then run off again. And it was easy to do that because it wasn't for anyone I knew. It was just fun, and we kept coming up with all these ideas, and we just kept I'd go into hospital for work and take 6 massive bunches of flowers and just go and give them to people with a little postcard, and it was ace. So that's how it started. And then it just grew because we're like, well, sometimes it needs to be more than random. And we started helping a guy that had a stroke and he'd got out of hospital but still couldn't walk or talk. And the hospital were like, well, there's no funding now, crack on. So we did, we really want to help. So we did a big fundraiser, like a meal and with a band. But then we're like, that's not enough money, that's going to run out. So we just put it out there because we were a charity by then. And we were like, if you donate, we can ring fence that money. So if anyone wants to donate, all of it goes to them, but it'll enable this guy, Peter, to have his speech and language therapy and physiotherapy. And people did, and we got like a couple £100 a month, and then it grew. So it was enough to pay for his therapy for a couple of years. And then they, we're still in touch and still, it's still happening. But he walked his daughter down the aisle, and it's incredible. And then just before COVID, he was like, I want to give something back because you've done this for years. I used to be a triathlete. He said, I want to do a 10K. He was in a wheelchair, and so we're like, well, who's going to push you around? Yeah, Muggins. So I was like, right, we need more people. So a gang of us did a fundraiser. He had loads of connections with Chester Marathon and that, so they got really behind us, did loads of promotion. And there were 6 of us in the end, including Ruben, one of the kids that's 6'2" and really strong. So I did push him for a little bit, but mainly chatted. And we did this 10K and we raised £6,000, wow, which was great. And then the next week, lockdown happened. And in terms of timing, it's like we spent all that money on people that needed help in lockdown, shopping, you name it, we did it. So yeah, it's wonderful how it just keeps going with these opportunities that come up.
So from when you were giving out flowers in the Mersey Tunnel, no, hang on, you weren't giving out flowers. You were giving out flowers in the hospital and paying for people's travel through the Mersey Tunnel. What was then that moment where you went, this could be a charity?
Well, I've worked in the charity sector for a bit, and probably the main driving force was Peter, because we could get gift aid if we were a charity. So I think it was around then. We were just a registered organisation for a few years, and then it just felt like a natural step. Yeah, so we've been a charity for probably 8 or 9 years now. I mean, not a big charity by any stretch.
So the Axe charity, that's what it's called. Give me that one-liner of what it is.
It's around doing an act of kindness, but encouraging and inspiring others. So I have done a master's dissertation in how you can encourage and inspire others to do acts of kindness. So I spent a year probably researching kindness and doing workshops and focus groups. So got a lot of understanding about kindness and became a bit obsessed with it probably because it's wonderful. And as soon as you realise that actually you get as much out of it as the person you're doing it for, and you get this rush and there's evidence to say that it improves your well-being, it's perfect. Because as soon as you do a few, you're hooked. And but what is that hook to get people in? So that's what I researched. But what I discovered is actually, in order to get people in, you have to take a step back in the kindness journey that I invented. So you have to be in a position to do an act of kindness. And in order to do that, you have to be kind to yourself. So the first step for me is self-kindness and lots of different things. It could be meditating. It could be just sorting your shit out. So it's about giving people opportunities. But in order to do that, you've got to be prepared to look upwards and outwards to spot the opportunities. And that's the hardest thing, to try and figure out how to support people to do.
It reminds me of that RuPaul quote, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love anyone else?
Yeah. Oh, RuPaul and I have got something in common.
I never thought of it like that. To work on yourself, to take a step back and look at yourself before you...
Yeah, and that's been a massive journey for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still find it hard receiving an act of kindness. It's far easier to do one for someone else. But I have learned that actually you need to accept it with grace, because that's the intention that it was meant.
Let's talk about journey. We'll move on to kindness in a bit, because that's the thrust of this whole podcast, and we won't leave it at that. But often I feel that, and it's similar to my journey, whether it's consciously or not, when you reflect, there's things that's happened in your life, like incremental little things or moments or conversations or experiences or whatever, that shape you into what you're doing today. So that shaped you into being the boss of a kindness charity.
Yeah.
Let's explore those moments, shall we?
Yeah.
So let's rewind. Grew up in Chester.
Yeah, Chester born and bred. Good upbringing, to be honest. Very into sport. So I didn't bother wearing school uniform. I just wore my PE kit all day. Left school at 16 though. As soon as I knew I could get out of there, I did. I knuckled down and did my GCSEs in the last year so I could get out of there. Did an engineering apprenticeship.
Why engineering?
You got half-price school lunches, well, college lunches, which appealed. Well, you got paid as well to go to college. And I don't know, I was interested. It was quite a groundbreaking thing at the time. It was called TTE. It was good for discipline. You know, you were never late. It was very different. It was a work environment, but you had a lot of time to sit around and chat. So I made some lifelong friends, really. Well, in the last year, again, pushing boundaries. Before me, there was Sharon Tyrrell. So you did 2 years in college, and then you did a year on site.
Oh, okay.
So I went and made hypochlorite on the hypochlorite plant, but Sharon Tyrrell had been pre-me. Now, Sharon Tyrrell, everyone loved Sharon Tyrrell. She was awesome. She'd like cook a roast on nights for the shift. She'd do all their chores. They loved her. And Sharon Tyrrell didn't get a job at the end of the year. And I'm like, if Sharon Tyrrell can't get a job, there is no hope for me. And
she was one of like your fellow apprenticeships.
She was a year ahead of me,
right,
and she was awesome. Probably still is. And so I'm like, if Sharon Tyrrell can't get a job, there's no hope for me. They've just got too many of these apprentices flooding the market. So I kind of went in knowing, well, I've not got a job in 12 months. Let's have a bit of fun. So I wasn't the best.
So how much fun?
Well,
what type of fun?
So at the time I was president of the student union and the TTE student union. So I had to go to a lot of meetings, but I've maybe exaggerated on how often I had to go to those meetings. There was a mate that we used to travel together, and occasionally we might have popped to the beach instead of going into the office. And then there were different sports events that I was able to take time out of my busy schedule. So yeah, I wasn't there loads, but we did have some fun when we were there. It's just weird working on a chemical site. Like, I had to drive a forklift truck. So when you drive a forklift truck, you have to drop your forks for, it's called an IBC, these big like ton containers, and put them through the wooden bit. Now, one day I went a bit high and I put it through the plastic bit and pierced it. I thought, oh no, I'm going to get into trouble here. So I put it through the bottom bit and then went and hid it somewhere and didn't tell anyone. I don't know whether they ever found out about that. So just fun like that. It was hard work, but you did have a bit of a laugh on site with the crew.
Was there a lot of girls?
No, ICI wasn't as bad, but after I left there, when I knew I wasn't getting a job, I applied for a job for we made raw perfume, and I was the only female there. And I used to be a very big feminist. And I went in on my first day and they were like, right, you've got to move those 236 kilogram containers over to there and decant them into 25. And I couldn't move it. I just physically couldn't move it. But all the other blokes were strong enough to be able to roll it. So I had to adapt. And so by day 4, I was sat in the office typing up the paperwork while the men did all the work. I had to get my forklift truck licence because there was no toilet. I had to go over to the office block, which was about a 15-minute walk. So there was loads of stuff around engineering back in the day that it wasn't set up for women. You weren't really respected as a woman, and you could either fight it or work with it. And I just went for the easy option.
Were you happy then to, saying you were this big, strong feminist, were you happy then to go into the office and do what was probably deemed as the ladies' job back then? Or were you seething?
Do you know what? I did it because I couldn't physically do the other stuff. It wasn't that important to me. Probably not great for women's rights and all that jazz.
I'm a feminist, but I'm not going to lift a barrel.
It is physical. And now you wouldn't have to, because there's rules that you're not allowed, but at the time. And I didn't last long there. It wasn't a good job because the boss didn't like women. It made it difficult. So I left there and I went and worked for a hockey mate.
Right.
That covered Europe making toilet paper soft. So I literally travelled across Europe flogging chemicals.
I know everyone's really dying to know, but how do you make toilet paper soft?
Just chemicals.
Chemicals,
but we had to install the chemicals, so we'd be running around these factories in our overalls.
In toilet paper factories?
Toilet paper factories across the UK, Europe, Middle East. And again, really great to see part of the world. And we weren't allowed in one country because we were women, and they were like, are there no men that can do this job? And we had to go and get a letter from someone, and just loads of stuff where you had to really fight for your place.
Wow.
And at the time then, the person I worked for, Julie, she'd been in the industry a long time and she didn't take shit from anyone. You wouldn't mess with her, still wouldn't, still mates with her. But taught me a lot about, where you've got to fight for your place and it's your right.
So you're like late teens, early 20s now, yeah?
I think I'm early 20s by now.
Travelling around the world in an overall.
Yeah, in Syria, there was 55 degrees. Is that right? It was bloody hot. I don't know whether 55 is really hot. It was desert. And all the kids that worked in the factory were literally in a pair of shorts and flip-flops. And I was there, boots, overalls, hard hat, glasses, absolutely boiling. But it was cheaper to employ a young boy to run up 5 rows of ladders and put a little bit of chemical in the top of this plant every hour rather than pay for a pump to do it. Oh my God. So that's just their reality. It was really interesting seeing this cultural diversity. The factory owners were lovely, welcomed us into their home, and we went along these streets where it had people that had their legs blown off in mines, and they were just wheeling along begging for money, and it's a real poverty, and the buildings were all ramshackled, and we went into this just normal apartment block, but then went up in a lift and it opened up into this. It was just luxury that I've never seen before. There was a little lady there with champagne waiting, and you couldn't drink in Syria. They didn't really have alcohol. And then you walked out, there was a pool on all the other roofs, there were just aerials, but here pool, marble.
Penthouse vibes.
It was just incredible. And we had a wonderful night. The football was on. I think it was a World Cup or something on a massive screen. And like, I don't know, it was wonderful. But then at the end of the night, we went back down to this poverty. And for probably the first time in my life, I saw that something, this is wrong. I didn't really think about it that hard. I was probably quite drunk at the time as well. And we went back and carried on the work. But I think that, for me, now I look back, was a moment of what is my role in this? Because at the moment I'm making a fortune. A fortune. I've never been richer.
Oh, wow.
I was seeing a guy at the time and we're just ridiculous. Like, we'd fly out to Chamonix and spend thousands of pounds on a weekend doing hydrogliding and drinking the poshest drinks and the most expensive meals. And it didn't matter because we had just so much money. And just indulgence, whatever I needed, I could just get. And it was nice to do, but it just didn't really give me any satisfaction. At the time, probably thought it did.
How much money?
Do you know what? I can't remember. I'd gone from being on like an apprentice wage of a few thousand to 25, 30 grand, which back then, and I was in a shared house with people, so I moved to Nottingham and lived there for a bit. So I didn't have any, I got a company car, because I was working all the time, all my expenses. After doing that for 2 years, I was knackered, really. Like, part of the role was to go out drinking with all the, because there was your sales effectively. So around Christmas, I was just drunk for a month, basically, every night in a different country or town or whatever, which was great fun for a while, but it was quite exhausting. We worked for an American organisation who, I don't think they realised the scale of Europe. So there was my boss and me, and that was it. They just left us to it because we were bringing in so much money. They didn't care. We made millions for our organisation, and so they were really happy with us. I always compare, for our bonus one year, I got a crate of champagne that I didn't particularly like, shipped over from America, and a whole salmon. And then I went and moved into the voluntary community sector, and I got a mini bottle of Jacob's Creek as my Christmas gift. And I always liked that comparison of I just gave all the champagne away, I just don't like it. So at the time it felt great, but it soon, for me, I just got exhausted and I wasn't happy. So I left.
So you've seen that polarisation of earning millions for this company, selling toilet paper softener, travelling the world, whisking yourself over to France every weekend, having a great time. But then you've seen this polarisation of extreme wealth and poverty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a brave decision, though, to go from like a comfortable wage.
Yeah, my dad is still gutted.
Really?
Yeah, because he's a working class guy. So he's like, why would you give all that up?
Yeah.
And I didn't really know at the time. But I think I knew it wasn't right. And I wasn't afraid, didn't have any fear of leaving. I thought, I'll get another job. And then I was like, right, what is that about? So I did a bit of travelling, but it wasn't for me. I don't know whether it's because I'd done so much in work.
Like a busman's holiday.
It just got to the point where, what wonder of the world am I off to see today? And I'm like, this isn't how travelling should be. So I did a few months. I came home for Christmas, and then I was trying to explore what the next step was. And I did a bit of voluntary work and met someone that wanted to do a degree in disaster management, and that sounded fun. So I literally Googled it, and I'd signed up a week later, and I went 2 weeks later to Coventry University and spent 3 years studying international disaster engineering and management, which was really good fun. And when I was there, I lived with a guy who worked in a mental health hostel, and he said, come on, I'll get you a shift there. Why not? And that was probably the next turning point, because I started working with people, and I wasn't good at it because I could do the confident, sell you anything kind of thing. One of the university lecturers said, you need to be careful because you could literally convince someone that black is white. And I'm like, oh, why? And that's great. You know, so what? Lucky me. But I still hold on to that because it's another thing that at the time, probably a little bit arrogant, and I could get what I wanted. And I felt that at the time. So I went and worked in this hostel, and I did stuff with people. I did like the social stuff. I went to football matches, took some people swimming. Yeah, like was a support worker really. But I got a little postcard of a guy, and it had on the front a picture of a chocoholic, so he knew me quite well. And on the back, he just said, "Thanks for saving my life." And I'm like, it's just words, but that feeling that I got compared to that £1,000,000, I can't describe it. It was, this is what it's about. And when you get that, you're a bit hooked. It's like, right, what does that mean, and what can I do about that? So carried on with my degree. But during that time, I guess the guy, John, who got me the job, he was a Christian, and we started talking about faith. And it's not that I would have called myself a Christian, but I don't think I was when I look back at it. Went to church a bit and just started exploring what faith meant. Someone said, what's heaven? And I said, well, it's hockey pitches and ice cream on tap, surely. So yeah, probably, if I'm honest, probably became a Christian around that time.
You've got a lot to thank John for. How's John doing? Is he all right?
I'm not in touch anymore with John.
So John's introduced you to mental health, introduced you to this new way of working that makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And he's also introduced you to God.
I think as well, kindness. Like, he's the kind of guy that you'd go out, he was Irish, so liked to drink. And you'd go out and you'd pop round the next day and he had the homeless guy on his sofa. How you walked in, the house stunk. I was like, oh, what is that smell? He said, I got chatting after I dropped you off. And I couldn't leave him there, it was cold.
Off the street.
So, and he'd move in for 3 weeks, rob him, off he went. And John was like, that's fine, he needed it more than me. He was just so generous with life.
What an angel.
Yeah, absolutely. And funny. Oh, we drank a lot though. He could drink. It was when the World Cup, another football tournament, I think it was somewhere like Japan, and it started at 9. So we started at 9 a.m. and carried on till 2 the next morning.
You in Coventry still now?
Still in Cov, yeah. Cov. So he definitely showed me a different way of living that was different in that I'd say my family are really kind to their own and their connections, but he was just kind to strangers, and that was at the time wonderful to see. But cool guy.
Isn't that interesting though, that when we reflect back and we think of some people that are our inspirations or influences, it's just usually it's like a random meeting. Let's talk church.
Yeah, came home, started going to a church, carried on exploring faith, still exploring. I was in one church for a couple of years, but then I got quite poorly turned out to be IBS, but I was off the radar for probably 6 months and hardly anyone at church contacted me. And I'm like, that's not real friendship. If you're not there, you're not. So I moved to another church called Hull Baptist Church, which was ace actually, probably where I grew the most as a Christian. So in church, you've got the Sunday service, which is all a bit tokenistic, to be honest. You can have a team sing-song and coffee and a bit of a chat about God. But you have small groups, house groups, whatever you want to call them. And I got in Alan and Lorna's small group, and it was just a really good group of people.
Who's Alan and Lorna?
They were just the leaders of this group that were part of the church, had been in the church for years and are still really good friends. And we grew together. One story from that group was I was working for a voluntary action at the time, so like an infrastructure charity, and I didn't know at the time, but if I look back, I was probably being bullied and it was not a good job. And I'm not saying I did everything right in this situation, and refused to let me have any annual leave, and I got a skiing trip booked. So I went skiing anyway. The following week, I just couldn't face going back. So I had another week off. I was like, I can't go back with panda eyes was my excuse. But I went to a small group on the Tuesday night and I just said, I feel so bad about this. But I just couldn't face going back in. And I know I've done wrong. I know it's not right. But I don't know what the answer is. And I remember one of the guys praying and he said, Lord, I just pray for real change in Sonia's life. I walked back into work on the Monday and got fired. It wasn't because I'd had 2 weeks skiing or on holiday. It was for stuff. They were going to fire me the Monday morning that I went skiing. So actually I got 2 weeks extra pay. So it was real change.
divine intervention, don't
And
we?
I still call Kevin Swartz on it these days for that prayer. But what was great from that is, yes, I got fired, but I went and had a coffee with someone straight after, and they were like, "Oh, well, we'll give you some work. We think you're great." And then someone else gave me some work, and by the end of 2 days, I'd got enough work because I'd just bought a house at the time that I couldn't really afford. So I literally had no money. So that was more worrying. But by the end of 2 days' time, I'd got enough work to keep me going to be able to pay my new mortgage. So I think even though it was horrible at the time, I think what I learned from that is, I guess for me, it'd be to have faith, and you're going to go through tough times, but you will come out the other end. And actually what will come out is probably more better and beautiful. And I went on, I did that for a few months, and I went on to get a job with Macmillan where I was for 12 years. So it was a real blessing in the end, that experience. Because when it's happened since, not the firing, but the difficult times, I know that I'll come out the other end.
And is that, there's a lot of stuff around mindset, a lot of stuff around law of attraction, a lot of stuff around putting your head in the space where you want to be? Or is that faith in yourself and faith in the situation, or is that someone else doing that for you?
For me, I'd call it, is it God incidence or coincidence? And I've written a song about it.
Insert clip of song now.
Is it coincidence or God incidence? Is it coincidence or God influence? What we really want to know, why we really care. We just want to know if we're going up there.
Probably the reason I became a Christian is because there were so many incidents that I could talk about where, for me, it's a God incident. So it's an intervention from something that takes me on a different path. And we always say the way that I live as a Christian is you pray to God, but you row to shore. So, you know, yes, you should be thinking about this and praying about it, but crack on. Don't just sit there and wait for God to provide all the answers.
So tell me about another instance, another God instance.
Blimey. A verse in the song is about a skiing trip.
Another skiing trip. Bloody hell, check you out.
I was with a load of mates, this was years ago, and they were going down a really dangerous black. I thought, I'm not doing that. I'll just go around the edge, meet you at the bottom. I obviously got lost and ended up at the wrong bottom. So I'll just go back up to the top. But the lift had closed, and I didn't have a mobile phone with me, so I had no money on me. I didn't even know what country I was in, if I'm really honest, because I went to an airport with them. They drove me to our accommodation.
Of course. Standard.
So I'm like, right, what do I do here? So I sat myself down, ate my Auntie Sheila's chocolate cake that I'd saved for emergencies.
And you brought that from England with you?
Yeah, it was left. Yeah, 3 days in, it was still, it's a bit squashed because I'd fallen over quite a lot.
Right.
And I was like, right, what do I do about this? Had a little pray. I don't pray, oh dear Lord, it was just right, I could do with a hand here. It was probably all it was. Picked myself up, started walking, I don't know where. I dropped a bottle of water, and this woman picked up the bottle of water, and she said, "You all right?" I said, "Do you speak English?" And she's like, yeah. I said, "I don't know where I am, and I'm lost." And she said, "Well, where do you live?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "All I know is that I live by a dam with a tiger on it." It was cool, so I remembered that. "Oh, my daughter-in-law lives there." She said, "Can you see it from your apartment window?" I'm like, yeah. She said, "Oh, I can help." So she walked me to the bus, spoke to the bus driver in, I think it was French. I'm going for French. And I got on the bus, paid for my bus fare for me, got home, just as my mates were rocking up in our minibus going, "Where have you been? We've been dead worried." And I was like, "Yeah, it's fine." So again, is that coincidence or God incidence? And but I think when there's enough of those stories that line up for me, that means that it's the path I'm meant to be on for now.
And I suppose it's having your mind or your being open to those opportunities as well.
Definitely.
And then they'll come to you, whether that's I'm going to say a cod incident then, like
Quite like that.
cod incident. That's a Friday night fish night. When someone just offers you chips, that's a cod incident. Or whether that's life and being positive.
And people talk about it like being positive energy,
Yes, exactly.
and like going back to the kindness thing. Actually, I do think the more acts you do, it just comes around. Is it an act of kindness or is it a God incidence? We were in the camper van. We had an old V-Dub camper van, and we basically I couldn't steer anymore. I don't know what went wrong. I was doing 50 on a road, so I just kept pulling it over to the left. So we crashed into a ditch.
Shit.
And it was really scary. And, we opened the camper van door, and Joy and I got out, and the 4 kids got out, and the dog got out. And all these people had stopped to say, how many are there? Why is it a TARDIS
Like
in there?
a clown's car.
Yeah. And they're like, are you all right? And then a couple of minutes later, a police car that someone had carried on driving because enough people stopped, and the police guy was watching the Man City game in the lay-by, so he came by. And we're like, yeah, we're fine, but the camper van, he said, that's a specialist tow truck job, that. It's really in the ditch, and it's a big, we're 3 miles from where we were going, but we'll sort it out. A specialist tow truck car drives past, pulls in. Do you need a lift there? He said, I was just on my way to Staples. So he gets the camper van. We're like, well, we can't, or he said, you can't be in the camper van because I'm going to have to tow it. I've only got room for 3 in my van. So I'm like, it's fine. The police driver, I'll take the others. So 3 of the kids got to go.
Oh, but they loved it.
They were in handcuffs. They had the sirens on. We rocked up to this campsite with a police escort and a tow truck. And you're like, how amazing. And then people were there making us a brew. And I mean, is that God incidence? I don't care if it is or it isn't. It's just wonderful kindness that when given the opportunity, people will take it. And I love that. I love it.
Yeah. From listening to a lot of the interviews on this podcast series, a lot of people do say, there are more good people in the world than there are arseholes.
Definitely. Yeah. And even the arseholes, I think, give them the right.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Let's continue on the Sonia journey. You found church. You found this lovely church group when you've moved back home. You've done your mental health job, and that's given you a flavour for waking up every morning and doing good.
Yeah.
And so, how old are you?
24-ish, 25.
So let's just summarise this next chunk of your life. You've left Coventry Uni now.
Yeah, finished my degree.
Yeah.
I got a project manager job in a prison for 6 months, but ended up staying 2.5 years, running mental health projects and getting sex offenders into self-employment, and had a team of about 10, 12 people that did peer mentor support, and a really good project, loads of money. It was European Social Fund, and we did more travelling actually across the other European projects. So had naked saunas in Finland, and went to Estonian prisons.
Wow. What were the Estonian prisons like?
Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, Finland, you don't really go to prison unless you've done something really naughty. And if you do, you can have sex with your partner on weekends in special rooms.
Wow. What do they call that?
Is it conjugal visits? Yeah, and there's like a little pack of condoms next to the bed. They are so wonderful at treating their prison as well. Whereas Estonia, young boys all shoved in a room together, need to knock to go to the toilet in the middle of the night and rarely get given permission. It wasn't as good. I mean, this was years ago. Hopefully it's improved. So did that, was going to church more regularly. And then after that, I got a job with Macmillan.
So this Macmillan job, how long were you at Macmillan for?
12 years. And
wow.
Then, yeah, but did 3 jobs within that time. So I guess by then I was still going to Hull Baptist, and that's where I met Joy, which is probably the next big life.
The next big chapter.
Pre-Joy, lots of men in my life, but only men, if I'm honest. And so Joy, I met Joy through church. We were in the same Alan and Lorna small group, but I'd took on a position of leadership maybe, where I sorted out the small groups kind of meetings and organising and all that. And Joy was a single parent with 4 really young children. So she was like, well, I can't go anywhere. I can't come.
Let's introduce them formally. Because you mentioned them a few times in the podcast. Let's introduce them formally.
Okay, so we've got Jonah, who was 4 at the time, very unusual child, wanted to be a yellow circle when he grew up. Then Reuben, mad about sport, wanting to play football with him. Martha, much more serious and very right all the time, but probably the most funny, sarcastic person you'll ever meet. And then Harriet, we nickname her Safi because she's very sensible, but also very funny and creative, actually. Yeah, so she was the eldest. She was about 9, I think, at the time. So, yeah, I'd never really met kids before, if I'm honest.
Did you want kids?
Yeah, definitely. So I started to babysit a bit for Joy. Oh, they had me. They were like, oh yeah, we always have 6 Mr. Men stories before we go to bed. So I'm like, really? This feels like a lot.
I know that feeling. Yeah, little grifters.
And then, we always have a little dance before we go to bed. So there we are, dancing to Mary Poppins at like 9 o'clock on the top bunk, which is probably not the safest thing. But yeah, just got to know them, probably fell in love with them. And then, I don't know, it grew from there. I'd end up staying till 4 a.m. talking about nipple slippers and...
What are they?
Well, I mean, this is random, isn't it? But what happens when you get older and your boobs get bigger and bigger and keep dropping? Do you need slippers for them?
Okay, good, yeah. This is a real Dragon's Den pitch, isn't it? I mean, we need to workshop it, but I think we've got something.
And just for hours, like, talking about shit like that. And for months it was like that. And then we didn't even kiss for months because it was like, well, this feels really right, but then is it right? And so after a while, I remember, I think I said, like, in the middle of the night, I think I'm falling in love with you, just straight in for the kill. Joy's like, could you not have told me in the day? Like, just fuck up my brain. But I think that just before that, there was a song by Newton Faulkner. It was something, it had a line in it, you know, about working 9 till 5, but there was a line saying, are you too afraid to cross that line? Do what you really want. And I sent it to her. And I think that was the first time we then had a conversation about, well, this is more than friendship. For her, there was so much at stake because of the kids. So we were just really careful and respectful of the kids.
Had she been in a relationship with a woman before?
No, neither of us had. She'd been married to her ex for, I don't know, they were together 15 years, a long time, because I want to overtake. Not that I'm
How far off are you?
Not far now, we're 14 years, so we're not too far, yeah. We're going to have a party on that day. I do remember the first person I told, though, one of my best mates from Nottingham, and she was like, great. And the first person Joy told was her sister who had relationships with women, and she was like, great. So that boosted our confidence. But after that, we just waited for people to talk to us about it, including the kids.
Oh, yeah. So how was that?
I think because they'd known me for quite a while, and it was so subtle that I just stayed a lot more, and I'd just leave a Sainsbury's carrier bag, and Joy with her OCD had to deal with it. So the clothes just found their space in the wardrobe, and then my hockey kit ended up staying there.
Well,
and
that's
so
a sign.
Yeah. Rube was the only one that we were in the car and he said, are you and Mum lesbians? And we've since chatted to them, always been really open and honest. Joy as a human, and probably why I fell in love with her is because she is the most honest, vulnerable, incredible, resilient woman. Like, I get quite upset about it because, like, she was a single parent with 4 kids under 5. How? I still don't understand. And I don't know, I go back to kindness, and like her brother got her a ring so she didn't have to be without a wedding ring, and she had to move house, and he came. I mean, he was a really important guy in London in finance, and he'd give up a day's work and come and help her look at houses so she didn't have to look on her own. And like her mates, like one had just come and have the kids for ballet on a Wednesday, the girls, so she could have a bit of time with the boys. And Kirst, her best mate, she'd just rock up and bath the kids one night because she could sense that Joy wasn't coping through the text messages. And I don't know, that I am getting like that extreme kindness that went on and on when it happened with her. Like her mum came up every Tuesday. She'd go up at 6 o'clock to come and do the school run because Joy couldn't physically get the kids all in their schools.
Yeah, wow.
And I think people did that because of who she is and by being open and honest. And as our relationship grew, she taught me, because I'd never had conversations about feelings. I didn't, even when I was with a guy for 5 years, we just didn't. It wasn't a good thing or a bad thing, but actually understanding those feelings and feeling probably love to a much deeper degree for both her and the kids has probably shaped me for who I'm becoming and still on a journey with.
Isn't that so nice that there's at least 4 people we've mentioned in this conversation that have all contributed to your journey of kindness?
Yeah.
Without even knowing they'd probably do it, like showing you the way.
Yeah.
So with the church, faith, groups, has there been any friction with being in a same-sex relationship with that whole thing?
So we left Hall Baptist, that not because of our relationship. There was Alan and Lorna moved to Thailand, actually.
Oh, Alan and Lorna.
Yeah, and it didn't quite, the new group wasn't quite the same. So we went to a few other churches, but then settled on a Vineyard Church, which is like a charismatic American evangelical.
Is it on a vineyard?
Unfortunately not, but they did have pastries and filter coffee before the service. And you sat in your chair and you got, when they took the box round where they want you to give them money, they also gave you a Rose's chocolate. So,
Hello.
like they started one up in Chester and we were part of that. We watched it grow, became mates with everyone there. But then we'd probably been there over a year and we were around at some people's houses. We were helping, they did this angel thing where they took Christmas gifts into prisons for people and we were helping box them up with someone. And this person was like, oh, we're really struggling on Sunday for the kids. And Joy's like, well, I don't mind helping. Oh, you're not allowed to. I'm like, what do you mean she's not allowed to? Like, she's a good parent. She's, no, all you can do is support the 0 to 18 months or 0 to 2s. And then after that, you can't. And she's like, well, why? Well, because of your relationship.
Shut up.
And we were like, really? And then we discovered that, so I am who I am. And I, in other churches, had done stuff that's to do with leadership. And I'd offered, they were like, what can you bring? And I said, I'm happy to, run the welcome team or whatever. And I'd never been invited. So fine, not a problem. Oh, well, you can't be the leader of any of the areas either. I'm like, well, why is that? Well, because of your relationship.
Did they actually say that?
Yeah. So then it was like, well, what about the kids? Because Martha looks after the, some of the kids' groups. Well, that's fine because they're not the ones committing the sin. So the specific issue was Joy and I's relationship. I mean, the kids were really challenged by it because in their generation, sexuality is just irrelevant or actually something to be celebrated. Yeah. And I was really, Joy was much more.
I'm getting really defensive now on your behalf.
Yeah.
My arms.
So I wrote it down in an email and we went round and had a conversation. And they were like, we really love you as people and it's great that we can disagree in love. And I just turned around and said, do you know what? I love you, but here you have all the power. Mm. I have no power to change this situation. And that is what discrimination is. So nothing changed though. And we carried on going for quite some time.
Did you?
Do you know what? We read a book by Vicky Beeching, who is, she used to be a singer-songwriter, really big in America, and then came home and came out and then was not welcome back in America. But she said something in the book that it was like, if you can be the change within, stay there as long as you can until it affects you. Mm. So for me, it didn't bother me. I was past it by then. I was really happy that God thought it was great that Joy and I were together. We talked about that a lot and therefore I didn't really care what humans thought. But Joy stopped going after a while. And then COVID hit and we haven't really been back to church since.
I don't know how you did that, Sonia, honestly. If I was in a relationship with someone I loved and I was going to a group that didn't agree with it, who banned me from doing things and being involved, honestly, I'd be fuming, #fuming, and I'd be like, you can stick it up your arse.
I think there's something about having grace. It's not that they didn't love us, they just didn't accept our relationship. And it is hard because we're quite normal and boring. You know, like, we're just a family. We're not, oh, those lesbians. And actually, you've got to be in that world letting them see you moan about the boiler breaking and moan about me not cleaning my toothbrush after a use. I'm sure. And by living your normal life alongside people, they can see that actually it's just sex. It's a tiny bit of your life.
But so did you stay there as a little bit of a protest, would you say? A bit of a defiance in life?
Yeah, I talked to, whenever, you know, I was allowed to be on the welcome team, so I was. And I talk about Joy a lot. And there were other people there. Yeah, there were other people there who, so Jan was ace, her son was gay. She left the church, actually. There were lots of people that liked it and didn't agree. And I talk about what was happening. And actually, the more you see into the church, how superficial a lot of churches are, and it's all about this evangelical model. I call it recruitment. So they want to pull them in, pull the numbers in, but then don't really look after what they've got. So you get a lot in, but quite a lot out as well. And that's just the evangelical model. You hope to get more in than leave.
Yeah.
But for me, God isn't human, and humans are flawed. So all of us are flawed, including me, blimey. So there's a quote, something like, it's just not our place to judge, it's God's place. And I'm really comfortable with how God is about our relationship. And actually, Joy has strengthened my relationship with God because I feel such a bigger depth of love than I've ever for anything ever. The kids constantly take the mick out of me because, God, I just feel so much love for her. But because I understand and feel that, I feel that for God as well. So all it's done is strengthen that feeling of love for everybody and everything, which I think can only be, if love is only a good thing. It can never be bad. So if you genuinely love someone, the fact that she's a woman is just irrelevant almost.
Yeah. Have you found another church since?
We haven't, but we haven't looked that hard. And we've got quite a lot of mates who are Christians. We go to a festival once a year called Greenbelt, which is like a Christian arts festival, very inclusive. I think the only thing I miss is a good old sing-song. Because in a communal group, for me, I experience God through worship, and it can feel really good. And I don't get that anymore.
I was going to say, you should start your own church. But you've sort of got halfway there because you have a chapel, don't you?
So the chapel is a church building, I guess, but it's been deconsecrated or whatever the word is. And it's a non-faith building. We want everyone to be welcome there.
So if you've listened to more episodes in this series, more often than not, the interviews are happening in that chapel. So where is it? What's it about?
So when I worked for Macmillan, my job was to spend a lot of money for Macmillan, and I did that in lots of community organisations, and some of them worked, but some of them didn't. And I'm like, how hard can it be? So, right, I go to try and do one myself. So that was the start. And then this building came up, and Joy and I went to visit, and as we walked in, well, we didn't walk in, we had to climb through the window was the only way in because all the doors were, and it was a mess. There was rubbish everywhere, needles, there were holes in the roof, there were trees growing in it. But as we walked in to the main chapel, the sun was shining through a hole in the roof, and there's a big sign that says, "Praise ye the Lord." Ooh. And it was shining, it was in gold leaf, and because of the hole in the roof, we were like, yeah, this feels right. So then we went on a journey of buying it, which was complicated. We couldn't afford it at auction. It didn't sell at auction, so they came back to us. And at the same time, a guy called Darren was giving up work. He was being made redundant, and he wanted a project. So we knew he was on board, so we went for it. Put all our life savings into it, borrowed 50 odd grand that we still owe, and bought the building, this really derelict building, thinking 12 months, it'll be open and making a profit. We're now nearly 7 years on, and it's half of it's open, and it's still nowhere near me. profit.
So what is it now? What have you turned it into, converted it into?
It's a community space and cafe. So the cafe, in theory, it's a social enterprise. The cafe will generate enough income for the community activities to happen. And I still believe it will, but we are not there yet. But there's been a great journey along the way of people coming on board, helping, moving on, and more people coming on board. And for me, that's what community development is. You just keep bringing people in to the fringe and then into the middle, and then people move around and give what they can. And there's some brilliant examples of community. We're still not there. There's still loads
What
to
sort
go.
of people are using the space then?
Well, I love, and we've got craft groups and we've got the music groups and all the usual stuff. But for me, the community happens in the cafe. So a couple of weeks ago, Dave dropped Di off at the craft group and he just comes and sits in the cafe with his crossword. But then Howard and his mate come in every day at the same time and they bought him a cup of tea. So come and join us. So now they'll always sit together and have a chat and a bit of a laugh. And that's what I love about it. There was a guy came in, he just came in for a coffee but loved the feel of the place. He then ended up running a beginners music group, an IT clinic.
Wow.
And so you just come and bring what you can. We've all got skills, come and offer what you can. And if you can't offer anything, just come and be. And that in itself is a gift to us because it's customers. And so, yeah, it's great.
That's so, I mean, the journey is amazing from, and fascinating when you reflect back on it, which I'm sure you have a lot of time, but from being on that penthouse in Syria
Blimey, yeah.
to realising that this is not what I want to do with my life, to now with 4 beautiful children, a wife.
Yeah.
You have run a charity, kindness charity. You have a chapel. It's a community centre in the heart of, well, just on the outskirts of Cheshire. And finally, you have a day job as well. And a podcast.
Yeah. But all great. I think life's about taking opportunities.
Absolutely.
And when, I don't know, I guess as I've got older and I've got long COVID, I have to start saying no now.
Mm-hmm. How does long COVID affect you? What sort of stuff is it?
Just energy's the worst thing about it. I've been ill before, but with this, with everything else, you crack on. Like, you've got stuff to do, you crack on, you go through the pain barrier. But the more you do that with long COVID, the harder you crash.
Yeah.
So I've had to learn not to do too much and to know when I've got to rest. So I'm probably operating at about 50% of what I used to.
Wow. And do you think you got COVID from you being kind and delivering packages to people during COVID?
Who knows? I was working in primary care at the time, so it could be from that. I was out and about shopping for every man and his dog. I don't know, but I don't regret any of it because it's who you are, isn't it? I'm not going to change who I am. Yeah, but it is a bit of a bummer at times.
And especially because again, I forgot, in that long roll call of things that you do, you're also a massively sporty.
Yes, that's
I'm
been
hugely
hard.
jealous of your active life. How does activity then play a role in helping you to? Because I hear loads and podcasts that I've made in the past that being active can contribute to not just you being fit, can also contribute to your mental
massively.
health.
Yeah, I think that's a gift because I've never really struggled with my mental health. There's been times where bad stuff's happened and that's affected it, but I've always been really positive. And I think that's because I'm always exercising and therefore I've got loads of endorphins running around. I don't know whether that's scientifically true, but I don't know why. I'm a really positive person.
But do you think that's come with, because at the very beginning we were talking about how kindness, to be kind, you take a step back and you work on yourself. And because you're comfortable, and you told me this before off mic, that you're comfortable with yourself, you don't hate yourself, you love yourself, then that can only mean that that's the reason why you're kind.
I don't know. I think I've always quite liked myself. Even when I was arrogant and probably not the nicest human, I didn't have thoughts in my head going, well, you're shit.
Yeah.
I just never have. I don't know why. I mean, it's great, but...
Yeah. I mean, I'm quite jealous, to be fair.
But it's only... I was literally at a Macmillan thing where we were all talking about mindfulness and they were saying, you've got to ignore these negative thoughts. And I'm like... I remember going up to the guy at the break going, well, I haven't got any negative thoughts. And it's like, really? Like, I wish I could figure out what it was and tell other people so that they could benefit. I do think sport helps. I think... like in terms of growing up, being part of a team, you've always got a gang of mates. Yeah. And out of all our kids, Ruben's really the only sporty one and hasn't really struggled with his mental health.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't want to tune into this podcast to hear me wang on, but I've done a lot of work on values over the years, especially when I got made redundant from my last proper job before I started my own business. I worked a lot of my values, and one of them was surrounding yourself with good eggs.
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with people who are kind, who are not arseholes, basically. And I feel like you've had a lot of that in your life, that people have injected you with kindness, showed you kindness, and you've almost like it's rubbed off on you.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's an important part of the kindness journey?
I wouldn't have always been aware of that, but I think it's quite interesting looking back. Then yes, I've had some lovely people in my life. And as I've got older, that's become more important. And actually, I've thought about what my personal values are a lot more. Yeah. I like the good eggs, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted you. You could have genuinely said whatever price you wanted and we still had you, because that it's important to me. I want to work with people that believe in what I believe in, because I think I've got it right. Yeah. Not that there isn't another way to do it, but if you surround yourself with kind people, then yeah, it's got to be helpful. And I don't think that's always conscious.
No.
You're just drawn to. Thinking of one of my best mates, Dawn. I've known her years, and she's taught me loads about kindness because it's just innate and it's in her. I don't think it is in me. I think I've had to learn it. But for some people like her and some of the people I've interviewed, it's just in the bones. And if you can find them people, then how lucky are you? Cling on to them.
I suppose another bit of this is not only surrounding yourself with good people, but putting yourself in good situations.
No, it's not even good situations. I'd say it's about being open to spotting opportunities.
Yes, that's right.
For me, I'm not going to lie, there's been times where I've not wanted to do it. So we tried doing an advent for 30 days. We do an act of kindness every day. We post it on the Facebook page, and I was going to do it. Day 14, I just could not. I didn't want to have to talk to a stranger. I just didn't have it in me. So I think it's about spotting opportunities, but also being kind to yourself. Kind to yourself is first. When you feel in a position where you can spot opportunities, they will present themselves and you will notice. So yes, put yourself in situations where that happens. So I had an accident, really bad bike accident. I was on my bike, someone crashed into me. I was lying on the floor of a roundabout. The woman abandoned a bus and came and put a coat over me. An off-duty nurse came and checked my vitals and put me in the recovery position. Another guy was getting the traffic to go past at this busy roundabout. Someone was on the phone to the police. And when you give people opportunities in an extreme situation like that, people are they're so kind. But in normal life, and I guess what I want people to get from this podcast is, what are those opportunities? Because they're everywhere, and it shouldn't take someone nearly breaking the back in the middle of a road for that to happen. Being in a position to spot opportunities, because the opportunities are always there. So as a kindness summary, I'd say kind to yourself, get yourself in the right headspace, then look for those opportunities because they're always there.
You always ask people for 3 kindness summary bullet points. So what's your third one?
So I'm gonna have the self-kindness, be open to spotting opportunities.
That's both as a kindee and a kinder.
Yeah.
So spot opportunities to be kind, but then as a person who's on your path to kindness, recognise opportunities where your life may develop or...
Yes, but as a person receiving an act of kindness, be vulnerable. But always be prepared to be your authentic, vulnerable self. Because if I learned from Joy that if you do that, people will and accept the kindness. So put yourself, be a lot more vulnerable. I'm so much more open and honest with people now, and vulnerable about how I'm actually feeling, and not, oh, I'm great, yeah. But that enables other people to be vulnerable back and to be kind back. and accept that kindness. Yeah, so that's my third one, to be vulnerable.
I like it.
Yeah, it's in.
Scary vulnerability.
Yeah, it's just hard. It is hard. Still find it hard.
Yeah. I think that is the end of
At last.
of our kindness conversation.
I'm sorry, listener. It went on.
Hey, don't you apologise. Stop being unkind to yourself. How was it for you? Getting quizzed.
It wasn't that hard, actually. I thought I did get upset once, but no, it was all right.
Before I came out today, when I was in the shower this morning, I thought, I hope I make her cry. And there wasn't any physical tears, but there was a wobbly lip.
There was a wobbly lip, yeah. Well done.
Thank you. So that's tick. And I'm inspired, listening to a lot of these episodes, I'm inspired to continue to be kind or be kinder. And even if that's just, my friend's amazing, right? All my friends are amazing. And I see kindness in them every day. And one of my friends, you can guarantee anytime you're out with her, she'll if she sees something that someone's wearing that's nice, she'll tell them.
Yeah.
Or she'll ask them where she got it from. And I said to her once, why do you do that? She was like, 'cause they're going to feel really good after it. So even if it's just, we're all about little acts of kindness, even if it's something like that, then how can you inject more of that into your life?
Doesn't it make the world a better place?
It does.
Game on, challenge on. Just don't do it every day because you'll get worn out.
What was it, week day 8, you get worn out. Yeah, so take it steady. Take the kindness steady. Don't overwhelm yourself. Maybe dip your toe in the water with a little bit.
Yeah, one step at a time.
One step at a time. And you too can be a kindness queen.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Curious Chats and Kind Acts. It was lovely to have you. Can I just say a massive thank you to all the people that we've interviewed who have been so honest and vulnerable with me so that we can have these real life stories to share with you, our wonderful listener. And remember, we'd love to hear what random or small acts of kindness you've been up to so that we can maybe do a few. Find us on all the socials, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our /ActsGB, that's ACTSGB. And drop a comment on our feed, tweet us, or even send a photo. Let's build our kindness community together. We'll read some of our favourites on future episodes of Curious Chats and Kind Acts. And you never know, we might even have a go at a few of your ideas ourselves. Watch this space on the socials. For more information about the Acts charity, including how to donate to us, head to actsonline.uk. See you next time.